This is TWiT.
This is Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. You've been waiting for it. You've been wanting it all day. Yeah. Let's get a brown liquor in here, Richard.
It was time to go back to Scotland and to go to a traditional. So the Dalwhinnie 15, it was one of those ones when I picked it up off the shelf because I do like it and thought, I must have already talked about this. And I thumbed through my notes and went, I've never talked about Dalwhinnie 15. Oh, my goodness. So I grabbed a bottle because I'm home. I get to do that. The word Dalwhinnie, a Gaelic word that means the meeting place, the village of Dalwhinnie is in an intersection point geographically on the southwestern part of the Highlands. It's nominally actually still in the Space side, although they generally refer to themselves as a Highland whiskey. The distillery was built not that long ago. It was only in 1897. You remember, we are talking about part of the world where there's been humans for thousands and thousands of years. That particular area was better known for smuggling things than making whiskey. The original distillery was built in 1897 by John Grant. That is the same Grant on Spey that folks who built many other distilleries. And it was named the Strathspey because that's the name of the waterway nearby. That name lasted a year because they ran out of money pretty quickly within a year. They picked the location because Dalwhinnie at that time had the railway already in it. This is 1897, so that's impressive, as well as various roads. But by 1898, A.P. Blythe has bought it and renames it after the town, Dalwhinnie. And so it has the normal whiskey experience of the early 20th century, including dealing with the challenges of World War I, with Prohibition. They had a big fire in 1934 that shuts it down for years. And then post-World War II, they generally start to modernize. You see more news from them in the 50s and 60s when they switch over to steam heat. They did their own maltings until the mid-60s. Then they, like everyone else, had to switch to third-party maltings. And then British Rail shut down their siding, but by then the highway had come through. And they were acquired by United Distillers in 1987. And United Distillers, of course, became Diageo. And you'll notice that the website that I provided for this is malt.com, which is owned by Diageo and has many of Diageo's brands in there, including Johnny Walker and so forth. But back in 89, United Distillers, in a promotional move towards Scottish whiskey, did this promotion called the 6 Classic Malts of Scotland. And so they picked like great representations of each of the regions. Now, there are 7 regions that are recognized for whiskey, and that is Lowland, Highland, Speyside, Skye, Islay, and then Campbellton. They didn't have a distillery in Campbellton, so they just left it out. And in fact, they actually used Highlands twice because they listed both the Oban, which is the West Highlands, and they called Dalwhinnie a Highland as well, although it's nominally a Speyside, but they included Cragganmore, also a Spey. And I've talked about Oban before. It's the only one of the original of the 6 classics that I've talked about, but we'll do them all inevitably, but we can't just keep hammering away on Scottish whiskey all of the time. So by 1997, of course, Diageo is formed out of that big merger with all the different companies, including United Distillers. So that's Dalwhinnie being a part of it. The distillery itself is it's a mid-sized distillery. They push through a lot of whiskey, millions of gallons a year. They have wood washbacks. They do I love these guys. They do 60-hour fermentations during the week, but on the weekend it's 110 hours, so nobody needs to come in.
That's the way to do it.
They still run on only 2 stills. They have 2 large stills, and they use wooden worm tub condensers coming out of them, which is old school. They actually took them out in the 80s and brought them back in the aughts. So they've stuck to the original techniques. Dalwhinnie is also a blending whiskey. So Diageo owns Buchanan's and Black and White. These are 2 original blends. Before single malts were a thing, you could buy Buchanan's and Black and White. Black and White's been made since the distillery opened, or even before in 1879. And you won't see this bottle in Scotland at all. It's only sold abroad. but it has both a Scottish and a West Highland Terrier, the black and white Skye Terriers on the label. And you can actually get a bottle of that from Bevmo in the 1.75 liter format. That's 60 ounces for those who are counting, for $45. However, when you come to a product actually named for Dalwhinnie, this is it. The Dalwhinnie 15 is the only product they sell. They have a couple of special editions, distillers editions, but otherwise this is what you're getting. Like the Oban, where you can only really get Oban 14, although there's Little Bay and a couple of others. Really, it's the one. And I already have the bottle, and it's afternoon, so that's close enough for me, so I get to have a taste. Now, it's nominally a space side, so you'd think it would be sherry cask, but no, they tend to stay strictly with the bourbon cask, so it's pretty light colored for a 15-year-old. They're not doing any color in it. They also add a tiny bit of peat to it in their maltings, and of course they order them that way these days. So there's just a touch of smoke, but otherwise it's quite a fruity, sort of fun, bright, non-burny kind of product. 15 is a nice age. You take a lot of the edge off of that. And they don't mess around with the barrelings. It's pretty straightforward. This is 43% ABV, a touch low typically for a whiskey in this category, but that's fine. About $95 for a bottle of this. Worth every penny. This is a proper single malt spey, which typically come in the $100 range for this age. And it should be on your shelf. This is a keeper. It's very drinkable. And this is one of the whiskeys that people who are uncomfortable with whiskey, I'll often feed them. It's like, I don't think I like whiskey. It's like, try this.
Nice.
It's not quite as cloying as, say, a Dalmore 12. It doesn't get the punch of an Aberlour or Abanuth, but it's got character to it. It tastes like something, and it's got a little heat on the finish, but not too noisy on the mouth. So it's a real nice balance, and I'm always glad to have it around. This bottle will be going into my decanter on the shelf as my evening sip for as long as that might last.
I suddenly feel the need to visit you at home.
You can make a trip up the coast.
You should.
Is that weird?
Not a bit. No, the boathouse is getting a new deck, man. You should come out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, a lovely dram, and absolutely, after going down the weirds and the bads and all those sorts of things, I just thought it was time for a classic, and literally, definitionally, this is a classic.
Dalwhinnie, the 15-year-old single malt Scotch. Malts.com has it.
That is Diageo's site.
Yeah.
And but you're better off going to your local Bevmo or your Total Wine or something like that.
I've seen
you
it there.
can find this.
Yeah, I've seen it there.
Yeah. But and therein lies the problem, which is that there's so many whiskeys you're staring and going, what am I looking at here?
Yeah,
so if there's anything I can do for you, it's like, listen, it's as special as it seems. Some of them are not. This one is.
Well, I know my mom's going to ask me to go in and get the handle Hiram Walker, so maybe I'll bring her back a Dalwhinnie just to surprise her.
We'll get her the black and white, because it's got Dalwhinnie in it.
Okay, all right,
yeah,
there you go.
And that's a 60. Right? It's the big one, with the big handle on it. They call it handles for a reason.
It's got a handle on it.
You got to curl those things, man. Like they're heavy.
It's the luggage of whiskey bottles. It's good. Yeah. Mr. Richard Campbell is at runesradio.com. That's where .NET Rocks lives as well. Joins us every week for the show, as does Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com, THURRO good. And his books are at leanpub.com, including the Windows Everywhere book and the Field Guide to Windows 11, a couple of really must-haves. If you've got Windows, you need those books.